thinker, 2 games, and numerous articles on creativity and creative thinking. Wow, you are in deep in the creativity world. What who or what inspires you creatively? Let's start there with you.
Thank you. Um, Fantastic. I think the thing that inspires me more than anything is actually to inspire others.
Mm,
So I find a huge inspiration when other people start to think creatively. And I think I've dedicated my life to actually work with people and help them become better creative thinkers. So.
tell me about the secret of the highly creative thinker. How what it tell me all the secrets.
Fantastic. So, The Secret of the Highly Creative Thinker is also a book. And the book has come out in 11 languages now and is sold in 65 countries. But it's interesting to go in behind. And what we look at is really what is the difference between the more conventional thinker and the highly creative thinker. And what we realize is that the difference actually lies in the way that we think, and our prefrontal cortex actually works differently. And what we
Oh,
see for people that are very, very highly creative people that find it really easy to come up with ideas, is that it's actually easier for them to see connections. So the secret behind the very highly creative people is actually their ability to see and make connections, and especially seeing the connections that other people don't see.
okay. And how can you train yourself to improve that? Is it something that you either have or don't, or is it something you can get better at?
So the wonderful thing is we believe everybody is creative, and there
Mhm.
is no doubt we're all on different levels. So, but the great news is that whatever level you start at, when you start to train it, we can all become better. So we do
Mm.
see creative thinking as a skill, and it's a skill that can be taught. And one of the ways to actually become a much better creative thinker is to learn to see and make better connections. So just like we can train our brain, our muscles, we can actually train our brains. Um, and I strongly recommend that we do this. And I've worked a lot with, let's say, mental training programs where we actually go in and train people's ability to see and make connections.
Wow. And what have you learned from this lifetime of work?
So I actually think now what I find very fascinating is that if we go back a few years, it used to be that creativity was something we would find in the marketing department, or it was kind of a novel thing, or it was a bit odd people. And I think what we find amazing today is it's a skill that everybody needs. It's something we need on leadership level. It's something we need to make sure we get into education from very, very early on. It is a life skill, it's a survival skill, it's something everybody needs. So I think there's been a huge shift in how we look at it. And I think the wonderful thing is we can see through research that if you actually train people, if you do intensive training, even from a period of just 2 to 3 weeks, you can actually tell a difference. And you can also
Mm.
see that in brain scans that we can actually create new ways of thinking. So this is a skill that I highly recommend everybody to train and to look at. This is not just for the crazy artists or advertising people. This is a skill for everybody. Um,
Yeah. I think this is one of the big myths of creativity is that it's attached to some artist, although I will say that with this rise of the creative class and the creator economy, the language around creativity has become much more mainstream. And with the places like Patreon and Substack and all of the abilities for people to monetize their creativity, this is something that when I was a child, these opportunities were not available to me. And for a kid on TikTok today, they can easily imagine having their own little, TikTok empire of just making videos and being creative and getting a message out or whatever it might be. So I think it's actually a lot more normalized. It's a playing field I'm interested in. It seems pretty level in many respects too. You go on TikTok and there are kids from all over the world because everybody has, the basically the smartphone has really leveled the playing field too. And I was talking to so many people, how do you see applying this creativity to helping everybody get to the kind of point where they're, beyond their basic needs being met, where they're able to partake in this?
Mm. Yeah, I think it's for me, I think now I've started where I used to work a lot in further education and with research and leaders and companies, and let's say specifically the creative industries. Right now I'm doing a lot of work to take creativity and creative thinking into primary schools, into the
Mm,
actually all levels of the educational system. What we see, like you say, is that we can see where kids, as you say, that go on TikTok and that's doing a lot of things, they have a natural creativity. But what we also see is that throughout their education, it's actually something that at some point we see a dive, and from the age of 11 it actually goes down. And what is really important is that we become deliberate thinkers, we become aware of how we actually do it. And this is uh, again something everybody can learn, but I am highly, I cannot say, I believe this is what everybody should have in schools, definitely.
yeah,
Because it's almost like riding a bike. Once you know these skills, then they are yours for the rest of your life.
right.
Brilliant.
They're tools.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's awesome. And tell me about your new book, the Creative Thinkers Rethink book. Is that being launched this week?
Yes, it's very new. It's just come out, and most places it will be launched in May. But from now, it's available. It's called the Creative Thinkers Rethink book, and the idea behind that is actually the fact that you can train your ability to think creatively. So it's an exercise book, and here you'll find 52 exercises. So this is where you go in and you train what we call the underlying mechanism that helps you to think creatively. So what you actually train is your ability to see connections. So in this way, you will be able to come up with more ideas. And you can use it as a warm up, or you can use it to actually go in and do some deliberate training to enhance your creative mind.
Oh, that's really cool. I think I'm gonna have to get this book. I love all kinds of exercises like that. I think they're so fun and good to just stretch your brain.
Mm.
Um, how does seeing connections fuel innovations?
So I think seeing connections is at the very key of innovation, because you're not going to
Mm,
have innovation without actually have an element of creative thinking in there, or creativity, because what we're looking for is something new. And I think particular in a time where we have COVID, we need new thing, we need new thinking. And what we see is this cross first, when we get inspired by other things and new things, that is when the truly creative uh, element will happen, and that's when we see real innovation. So we can, yeah, actually, let me just, even though we have such a short time, let me just show you a quick example here where we can see this is an engineer who's doing Japanese high-speed trains being inspired by a kingfisher. And here we
uh-huh.
see a connection, and we see connections in everything in innovation, the ability to connect with something else. And that's where we see some of the biggest breakthroughs. So I actually see it makes sense to go in and train your ability to make these connections in order to actually get these breakthroughs, which will lead to great innovation.
And where do people generally have these breakthroughs? And do you hear about where they have them? Is it true that I know for me, my brain, I'm so cliche, like in the shower. I just will be showering and I'll be trying to work something out. And even most of what I wrote for my opening presentation, it was almost like it was downloaded to me in the shower, but it's something I'd been thinking about for, quite some time.
Mm. I think people have ideas everywhere. And I think the trick is really to become more deliberate about how you have your ideas. So I think the moment you train this underlying mechanism, you actually start to see and make connections, and you'll make them everywhere. So you might be trying to solve a problem and suddenly you see a lady's hat or volcano or a new lampshade, and that is going to be that what's triggering your new idea or your new invention. And I think the sharper you become in making these connections, you will see that you get them everywhere, and you can,
Hmm.
anything and everything can actually inspire you. So I think it's wonderful. Yes, people get a lot of ideas in the shower. We also see that walking is fantastic, but it's
Hmm.
all about actually allowing your mind to connect with new things, and this will help
Mm.
as well.
I think too, just being able to capture that. Sometimes you'll have that, and I used to say, "Oh, I'll remember that," and I've learned that that is the death of having an idea or a creative burst or something. Jot it down or use your memo, anything just to capture it, because 9 times out of 10, I will not remember it. Are you presenting later in the week?
Oh, yes, definitely. I'm presenting on World Creativity and Innovation Day on the 21st. I'm doing a lot of work on Monday. I'm working with 400 children in Denmark that are all going
Wow.
to do creative ideas based on the global goals. So I'm doing a lot of work and have different presentations and a lot of projects coming up here this week. So it's fantastic. What a wonderful opening of the World Creativity and Innovation Week. That's
I know
amazing.
it's very early in the morning for you, so I appreciate you getting up and talking to me and sharing your wisdom about making connections. I think, on a very fundamental level, not just recognizing the connections we can make between ideas, but recognizing that we are all connected one way or another is just so mandatorily important in our increasingly shrinking world.
I agree. This has been absolutely amazing. I think what a wonderful way to start this week. And I hope that a lot of people's going to find new knowledge and new inspiration. So this is wonderful. Thank you so
I
much.
love it. It was so inspiring just to get a taste of all of the knowledge and the diversity of all the people coming to this program. And I just thank you. Where can we find your work if anybody wants to find you or find your work?
Yes, then please go to creativethinker.com. And in there you will find a lot of different things and a lot of inspiration. So here you'll find, yeah, all my new books as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.